T minus 60 seconds. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 5 Foot Viking podcast, where we get to drink a beer and learn something new. Just want to say thank you to everybody who's been supporting for all these months, literally about almost 10 months now that we've been going. Today is episode 35, the 35th episode of the 5 Foot Viking. Super excited. Just want to let everybody know that you can always go to the 5footviking.com, which is a landing page right now, which is being worked on right now to integrate a lot of different stuff. I'm looking at integrating a store into there with some merchandise. I'm looking at integrating some ways that you can navigate to different platforms and look at galleries and videos and just fun stuff, and where we can interact on a separate platform. But you can go to the 5footviking.com. Check that out. Also, if you're watching right now live, and if you're listening, you can actually go on to the description above or below, depending on what platform you're watching, and there are links to all kinds of gear that I'm using, and to the beers that we're drinking, and tonight too, there's a recommendation from our guest into some gear that she really uses and loves, and so just to let you guys know, there's a bunch of stuff up there that you can check out afterwards, or right now if you want to, if you take it out right now. Also, I want to send out a special happy birthday to my sister Tambra. She's in Arizona, and she's probably not watching right now. She might be working, but I just want to send out a very special happy birthday to her. Her birthday was yesterday. And you know how things get when you get older, and things are super busy. And I ended up messaging her this morning because I didn't get a chance to get to it, but I called her this morning, and I know she's at work and she's doing stuff. But I really hope that if you do get a chance to see this, I hope you had a great birthday. I know you're 21. I'm just kidding. She's just a little bit younger than me, so. Yeah, 21. But hey, when we're all drinking, we're all 21, right? So that's a good thing. So you're 21, and happy birthday. I hope you had a great time. And from there, I kind of just wanted to introduce my guest for tonight. It's fun because you know how back in the day, at least I'm a Gen X, and when back in the day you would meet people at school, or you would meet people, here and there. But nowadays, in this whole social media, you meet people virtually, which is interesting. And it's a kind of a different way of meeting people, anyways, for me anyways. But so my wife met Rhea through, I believe it was Instagram. They met on Instagram, and Rhea's a runner. She's to say that she's fast, like in the description, is a complete understatement. Okay, she's ridiculously fast, and she's just a rock star when it comes to running. And they met over Instagram, and they became friends over Instagram. And next thing you know, we were running some of the same races, and so we would meet up and say hi. And even if we weren't running, I remember there was one time that Marlene and I went to go support her in a run and cheer her on. And then when we finished, we ended up going out for a beer afterwards, because that's exactly what the 5 Foot Viking does. It's always about that, enjoying that recovery drink. So, but But yeah, and so I'm super excited that I reached out to her because she's always been on my list of. I want to learn more from her because some of you may not enjoy running, and that's okay. You know, it sometimes it sucks, but I grew up running, and I've got I've had a lot of motivational people around me that have pushed me into running, and watching her and seeing her example has just been it's been a treat to watch that. So, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, I'm going to bring in Rhea. Where are you at? Are you there? Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, out of your evening. I know that it's a little bit different because you're on the East Coast. You're
it's a little later here.
Yeah. What city are you in?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Raleigh, North Carolina. So it's awful late, and I appreciate you taking the time, you know, out of your evening to spend some time with us and give us some tips and just have some fun and talk some stories. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm ready. I got my beer.
Oh, you got your beer ready. Okay. Oh shit. Okay. let me we've got can you see the comments as well on the other side?
I need to.
Okay. I've got a few. I'm just going to jump into a few of these. We got Alberto, who is a massive supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Chuck, what is going down, my friend? If I'm not mistaken, I think Chuck is on the East Coast as well. Nice. I could be wrong. Chuck, please correct me if I'm wrong with that. Jessica Knight, always a huge supporter. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. And this is going to be great. This is a great comment. This is my 6th grade drama teacher, Mr. David Schlitt. I just got to throw it out there real quick. Mr. David Schlitt was one of my biggest inspirations for running back in 6th grade. He cool. Yeah, he ran marathons, and he ran the Cougar, the Covina in Covina, California, the Cougar 5K. And he ran it. We didn't run together, but he was there with me, and he showed me some stretching and some stuff. And okay. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're on, sir. Thank you so much for being here. We got some good friends here. We have my beautiful, incredible, amazing wife is in the other room watching. Love you. And thank you for being here. And Chuck says, New Jersey. Yeah. So it's late. Thank you so much. Yeah. Appreciate it. And so with let's jump into the very first segment, which is obviously, everybody, the beer segment.
Beer! You're allowed to drink beer?
Anybody got a cold beer?
Do it up again!
Another!
Yeah!
That is a beer.
Skål.
Skål, everybody. Yes, indeed. That is the brand new beer intro, which I think is much better. So let's start off. What beer are you drinking? I know it's an East Coast. You're keeping it East Coast for us tonight.
So I purposely we have a really amazing bottle shop that also we have a run club at. So I purposely went there today to get some North Carolina beers just for this. So I'm drinking one from Bird Song Brewing. Which is actually a Charlotte, North Carolina beer. So I'm so sorry to all of but I'm drinking it out of a Raleigh. It's a Bond Brothers.
Yeah, Tulip
glass. So I'm still representing North Carolina.
I love it.
Board. So
and how many? Is that like a 20%?
No, this one's so you don't like sours. It's a sour with passion fruit and strawberry. It's called Passion Play. I thought that was
okay.
One.
I know. Like it.
Yeah, Gretchen, we need to get you. My friend Gretchen's listening, so I'll get you to try this one. You'll like it.
Awesome. All right, and for me tonight, I'm going with an IPA tonight. So I'm going with a St. Archer Mozy 7 IPA, and this one is 7%. And I'm not huge on IPAs, but you know I do like to try them every now and then. And so let's here we go. Ready? Skål. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Oh, that's going to get me there, especially because I was pre-gaming. So,
but it's late here, I'm allowed to.
That's right. It's nighttime. You're allowed to. And actually, after our podcast, I have to turn in some homework before midnight. So, yay me. Then we'll see what kind of paper I write after a couple of these beers.
A lot of clarity after beer, no filter.
All right, sweet. All right. Well, once again, I appreciate you being here. And for those of you that are just joining or just tuning in, Rhea is, we met running. We met. That's how we met, was
Right.
through marathons and races and stuff like
Southern
that.
California race scene.
Yes, indeed. Now, did you live out here before you moved, or have you always been East Coast baby?
No, so born and raised Southern California,
Mhm.
just inland of LA. So that's how Marlene and I connected.
Yeah.
And just doing, we talked about the LA Marathon, was both of our first marathons.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I just, grew up, born and raised in Southern California. I did a year abroad in college in Italy, loved that. And
Mhm.
then always knew I wanted to do that again, move elsewhere, having been born and raised and spent 30 years in,
Mhm.
Southern California. So moved out here. It's been 5.5 years now.
Okay.
In Raleigh. I love it. I looked into Boston because I'm a Boston girl, but I can't drive in the snow. So it's like, oh, that's not gonna work for me. That is not gonna work. I am definitely not a cold weather that long.
Okay.
Yeah. So Raleigh was a really good fit just coming from California. And I love it. I love it a lot. The running scene here is fantastic.
Okay. Well, okay. So speaking of running,
Yes.
and speaking of that, I do want to talk a little bit about your journey with running. So
Yep.
let's.
Runners, take him on. Running, 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 run! 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 Run, I said, run, run, run!
That boy sure is a running fool.
So with all of that being said, your journey as a runner, did it start off? I wanted to bring this up, the young runner, and it doesn't have to necessarily mean that you were 5 years old, but when did you start running? Like, were you super young, or did you start off at a later age?
College.
College.
Yeah.
College running?
College.
Really?
Yeah. So I was always athletic. I was always into sports, but I was never really good at any of them, which is kind of hilarious. Grew up playing soccer from the time I was a kiddo, but you couldn't stick me in a spot. They would put me in a sweeper eventually because it was just like, Rhea's just all over the field, so we'll just put her where she can go anywhere. And that really was like my first kind of inclination that like maybe this would be something I'd be good at, but I didn't realize that till 20 years later. And I just love to swim. I grew up in Southern California, so I did swim team. I did water polo. None of that involved much running. And then when I was in college, hated it. We would have like gym and stuff in high school where they'd be, you get points for every lap around the track, and I could just go forever. But again, I didn't like enjoy it. It wasn't something I was like, ooh, yay, let me go for a run. So then in college, I was working in a real estate office, and my boss was in her 50s. So she was over twice my age. I was only about 19, 20 when I started working for her. And she ran marathons, and she was just so fit and fierce, and she was in her 50s. And I was like, okay, what does she do? I want to do that. Because it was just, I need something to work on. And, I always did sports, and then I didn't do any in college. And so it was just kind of like, well, let me try that. So I give 100% of my running inspiration to my boss. Her name's Sue. I still
That's
talk
awesome.
to her. Yeah, I haven't worked for her in over a decade. It's been years now, but she still encourages my marathons. I would have never gotten into it without her, and I just owe her so much. She still does them. She's in her 60s. Still
Oh
goes
my
out
gosh,
and-
that's awesome.
Yep, she's amazing. So that's what I aspire and continue to aspire to be. Is I just keep wanting to be like her.
And so you were watching her, that's where you got your inspiration from. And from watching her, did you sign up for your first race?
Yeah, so I did a half marathon the first year I worked for her. I did it was the La Jolla half in San Diego. And
Okay.
where you run up Torrey Pines, which is anybody who has done that half knows that's a really hard half. And I just remember I was 20 and I just remember thinking like, I've never run this far. I walked a ton.
Yeah.
It was so hard and I felt good, but I was like, okay, that was enough. I don't want to run anymore. And so I did a couple 10Ks after that. One when I lived in Italy, or when like living in Europe when I, so
You
far
did,
from it.
hold up. You did races in Europe?
Yeah. Not many, but living there.
How are they different from races here? I mean, miles are miles, right? You know, like miles are miles, and hitting the pavement and probably mindset and all that stuff
feels pretty similar. Yeah, all of that feels pretty similar. And races are so international now, anyways. So all of that feels the same. But in Italy, there's some stigmas there that some ring true, some less. But when I was more just I would just go running because I was stressed out. I was living, my family's in California. I'm halfway across the world. I was 21. I had no support system. So how do you handle when things go wrong? It was like, well, the only way I knew how was like, okay, just go for a run. So I'd go out and run 2-3 miles because that was something I could do. And so running kind of stayed with me after that little half marathon. And then eventually when I got back, when I was in grad school, I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. And so the week I graduated, I ran my first marathon.
And which one was your first marathon that you ran?
So that was 2011 LA marathon.
Oh shit! Wait, that was the year that it was like pouring rain, right?
Yeah, but I have great luck in the rain, so I tend to view it now as it's kind of good luck for me.
Okay.
I had my first marathon in the rain, my first Boston in the rain. I've had some other pretty special races in the rain, and so. Yeah, so for me now, I see the rain. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like,
time to do this. Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Oh, okay. Well, so moving into the first marathon, let me jump into, let me take this down. Let me put this up, and we're going to talk just a little bit about training.
I'll run a marathon.
Training for that 5K.
Here's how you run a marathon.
What about training?
So what about training? So when you are, you sign up for your first marathon, you did a few 10Ks and 5Ks before and half marathons and stuff. But when you sign up for your first one, did you even know beforehand that it was going to be pouring rain? And did you train for that whatsoever? Or did you just jump in and like, let's do this?
So back then, I wasn't on Instagram to connect with runners. I wasn't in a training group. There was no run clubs for me. I had one person I knew who did this, who was double my age. And so it was not a training plan that I felt like, she didn't even really have a training plan. And so she'd been doing it so long. So she just kind of was carrying forward on momentum. So I had no clue what I was doing. So my longest run, and I tell this to people and they always kind of laugh at me, was not even 14. It was 13.89 miles. And that is what I did as my long run for the marathon.
You only trained for half of it?
Yeah. And I think I did that once. And then I think I did maybe 10 or 11 once or twice. Like I was like the most ill-prepared first marathoner, just terrible. I don't recommend that for anybody. My only drawback was I think 24, and so like you could do whatever. You're so young. On my side. Yeah, I'm 24 and I'm relatively fit. I had that on my side, and so I remember hitting mile 16 in the rain, and
oh my god,
like, I've never run this far, and I have 10 more miles.
I think that's one of the hardest parts, and I remember a good friend of mine told me. They said, train for whatever you can train for, but don't train past 20 miles because literally those last 6 it's all mindset.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit later, but
yeah, to an extent.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where depending on what your goals is, you know, if you watch any running movies, or if you know are familiar with marathons, they call the marathon like the modern man's or the normal man's Everest. It's something anybody can do. And I believe that, because I have run enough races. I have seen every single person who is out there, and it is all shapes, sizes, ethnicity. Like, anybody can do it. If you want to do it, you can. Now, it's easier for some of us, but it's not impossible. And it is something that if you want to go out and do it, do it. And I love that. Like, running doesn't discriminate. It's open for anybody. You know, and so I think that is what makes it special. And I think the people who are, the back of the pack runners, I think they're the most inspiring to me, because they have to, like, I want to quit after a certain amount of time. I'm like, I'm over this. And they're out there gritting it for for an extended amount of time. And I just think that's so impressive. And so for me, when I signed up for my first one, I had like a tentative time goal in mind, because I was like, okay, I ran a half 4 years ago, because I hadn't touched a half since. And
oh geez,
that was a bad experience. And so I was like, okay, I have a tentative time in mind. I know what my boss runs. I've run with her a couple times. So as long as I'm under X amount of time, I'll be good. And like, I didn't have a watch. I was wearing like cotton. Like, you
just went for it. Like, you just like,
again.
Marlene and I, so our first marathon we ever did was the year after yours. It was the 2012, and same thing. Well, not same thing. She was training. I wasn't. I didn't train for shit. I literally was at a gig the night before on Saturday night at Zendejas in San Dimas. You know, I was a smoker back then. So I was smoking outside, drinking on stage. We got done at 2 a.m. I drove back to Huntington Beach. I picked up my wife. I changed clothes. We went out to Santa Monica Pier.
Showering. I'm just gonna get dirty again.
Yeah, I was like, let me get this tobacco smell off of me real quick. And then we went out there, but you know, like you said, you had a somewhat of a goal that you kind of wanted to be around. We just wanted to finish. That's
it. Just finish. And I think that is, honestly, I actually think that's the best goal.
My goal, I just wanted to beat the truck that picks up the cones. As long as I can beat that truck, then I'm doing great.
Well, because at the end of the day, you just did 26 miles. The time doesn't matter. Like, that's such a cool feat in and of itself. The time is the time. Like, the time is whatever it needs to be. Running 26.2 miles, I think, is just fantastic. And just getting through that distance is a testament. And I couldn't barely walk that week after, but I never also felt so strong. Like, I was walking into my finals in grad school, like limping and like having leg spasms, and I was like taking a test and my legs twitching, and I'm like, but I'm strong. Like,
absolutely. Oh, this is interesting. My Mr. Schlitt, he ran the first LA marathon. And Mr. Schlitt, cool. if you're still logged on right now, I'm curious what year that was.
It was 85, I think.
Was it?
I think so.
That's
85 or 80. Yeah.
That's amazing. Mr. Schlitt was a big inspiration for me growing up. He would, teach me stuff. I remember he always had Nike stuff on, and he was always, he had a lot of great knowledge, helping me out. And he was always very encouraging, especially at such a young age, being in 6th grade. Here he goes. Yes. 1985. Yeah. 1985. That's freaking awesome.
The only reason I knew that was because the medal from 2015 had 30 on it. So I just went back.
That's awesome.
Like, I have that medal.
Hold on. It says, Google says 86, but I'm sure it's wrong. Yeah. No, actually, I appreciate you, Chuck.
That makes sense. Because if you think the first edition is the one, so that does make sense.
Oh, okay. Might be, yeah. Yep. Might be. I mean, I guess it depends on how you count, right? And I was pretty good at math. I was better at math than.
So the first edition, so like 80, if it started in 86, that would be 1. So then 87 would be 2. So the math.
So you have the initial, and then you have 1. And to be honest, I mean, we're so far into the game now. Like I was tripping out when we did ours. It was more about, like I said, just finishing. And we took
Yeah.
pictures. We documented the shit out of everything. We took
It's
pictures
such
at
a great race.
it really the LA Marathon, and
It's a great race.
I'm sure you'll agree with me when I tell anybody and everybody out there, if you are thinking about doing a marathon and you're in, obviously in Southern California, the LA Marathon really is just, it's so much fun and there's so much to see. Uh,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. You're
Especially
going down Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, Rodeo Drive, Santa
Yep.
Monica.
Yep.
You're
Ocean
passing all.
Boulevard.
You start off at Dodger Stadium. I mean,
It's
there's
fun. You run by like through the Chinese Theater, like all Chateau Marmont, Disney Concert Hall. Like it's a tour of LA. And if you're not from Southern California, there's no traffic. So there's people traffic. There's no traffic. So it's the best way to see things, especially if you're not from LA.
I love you, Chuck. He's like, I'm 2 beers in, so don't listen to me. I hope you don't have to do all of those hills. There are a few.
I'm in Raleigh. Don't even talk to me about hills.
Yeah,
LA Marathon is
I'm gonna shut up.
not a hilly course.
Marlene, my beautiful wife, chimes in. She says the LA Marathon was the longest ever, but it was such a great experience. I loved it. Absolutely. And for me, like when you saw so much, and that's what made it go by so quick. We went by. You're seeing all this stuff. You're like,
drummers.
Right.
I love those drummers. They're so great.
In Koreatown.
Yeah, so fun.
And then when you hit Sunset, you hit Hollywood, and you're going by the stars. You hit Sunset, you're going by the whiskey and the Viper Room, and then you hit road. It's so pretty incredible.
It's such a fun ride. Again.
But we digress. So I know we're talking about training.
We're not.
But we're
the LA Marathon.
And it's all good. We're gonna go down. We're gonna go down rabbit holes like this all night. So, but I did want to ask you just a few things. So when it comes to training, and we were talking about training, and you're definitely very experienced from the beginning aspect, and also in more of a professional aspect because you run so fast now. And speaking of that, I'm just curious, what is your fastest marathon? Like 6 minutes? Like
I hate this question. It's not you. It's just because it's one of those things where it's like, so I did this, I can't do that now. It's
no, but at that time you were prepared for it. You worked your ass off. You got there,
I was doing about 3 hours of cardio a day so I definitely was ready. I had no clue I had gotten in that type of shape. So it's a 6:35 pace. So it's a 2:53.
Sub under 3 hours.
Yeah.
You did 26 miles in under 3 hours.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing because everyone's like, oh, and I'm like, but don't expect me to do that right now. I cannot do that right now.
It's embarrassing. I don't think it's embarrassing whatsoever. I think that's
It
wow.
It was the perfect day. I don't think I've ever, and it's hard because it's like that perfect runner. It's just everything comes together. You have that perfect race. And I think those are so rare. And it took me a long time to kind of come to terms with like, wow, I had that and it was perfect. And now it's just this kind of little thing on this pedestal that I keep over here. That was like,
no, that's beautiful. That's I mean, and like a lot of us, trust me, I'm 40 something, and I definitely don't run like I used to, but I had that one moment where I had that great race that was like, I totally understand what you're saying. Like that was up there. That was a pinnacle moment in my life that I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that, but I mean, obviously I'm not 24 anymore.
And that's what it was. It's just everything came together. It was raining. I know. It sounds like a movie, but my love of running is romantic in the rain. It was beautiful. We had a headwind.
So with being a beginner jumping into it, but then also getting to the point where you're running sub 3 hours. That's fucking impressive. Absolutely. No matter what, when it was, that's impressive. I want to have just a few questions for some of our viewers that are out there that maybe they're brand new. Maybe they because I know I felt this. I felt like looking at a marathon. I ran cross country in high school and I loved running. It was great, but that marathon, doing a full marathon, just felt like this Everest, and after doing it, I know that anyone can. So, and this as well too. So what I want to, the question that I want to pose to you is, like, for the beginner people that are out there that are a little bit scared of it, what would be your recommendation to them as far as training? Should they be training, 5 days a week, 2 days a week, multiple, should they be going more for time, endurance, miles? What would you recommend?
That's such a loaded question because I don't think there's any training plan that's going to work across the board for everybody.
For sure.
My one thing is no matter what and there's so many free plans online that are good and solid and, beginner marathon, if you've got a time goal based on your paces that you're currently running, or if you've done a half and you kind of want to build up. My biggest recommendation is pick a plan or pick a schedule that you're excited about. Because if the idea of running 5 days a week is daunting to you and it's going to make you miserable, don't do that. Do not do that. Because once you lose your joy in it, all the motivation goes out the window. So if it's 3 days a week, I know people who ran 3-4 days a week. When I did my first marathon, I think I was 2 to 3 days a week max. Again, I was young and dumb, but you can. I was young and idealistic. Now I have more experience to know how to make it hurt slightly less. But it still hurts. But I'll say that apprehension, I haven't done it, like, it's because of COVID and everything. I haven't really raced a marathon in probably about 2 years now. And, like, I'm nervous of it, even though I've done 33 of them. Like, it still makes me nervous. So don't be embarrassed that it feels like a big, like, I've done it and I've proven I can do it and I'm still nervous. So it's okay to be nervous and it's okay to feel like it's a big deal. It is, but it's still doable. And so, pick a plan that works for you. If it's 3 to 4 days a week with some cross training, awesome. You don't have to be a high mileage runner to do a marathon. I had people who, when I was running, like right around 3 hours, and I had friends who were doing 70, 80, 90 miles a week, and they were just killing themselves, and they were running slower than I was, and I was doing like 40 to 50. And so you don't have to be high mileage as long as you're doing quality miles. There's a thing of junk miles put you at risk. And then it's funny because now I'm going to contradict myself, and then I run every day. But I also still tend to be a slightly lower mileage runner for what I do, because I'm a big believer in anytime I force myself, like, I have to get X amount today. I've gone out and, like, quarter mile from the finish of a 10-mile run when I knew I should have stopped at 8. I sprang like people,
and then
it didn't feel good and I didn't want to do it. My heart wasn't in it. I was good at 8, but I told myself I needed to do 10 because I was so set on that mindset. So I think my biggest piece of advice is have a plan and have, a regimen that you're happy and that you buy into. Because if you don't buy into it, if it feels daunting, if it feels too much, you're not going to have fun with it. And the best time I ever had was when it was just from my gut. And that's how I PR'd. That's how I ran my 253, was I was just in love with it. I was just, every day I was running and it excited me and I was passionate about it. And I was like, oh, this feels good. And then, and then
I love that.
Just kind of clicked. And so if it doesn't feel good, or you hurt, or you're constantly tired, or you're constantly dreading it, that's not the right, like, plan for you.
I like that. I like that.
Love what you're doing. If you love what you're doing, it comes together.
Well, would you recommend, like, I mean, it sounds like you're saying, like, listen to your body, like, definitely. Have a plan, get out there, attack it, do the best that you can, but listen to your body and don't over push yourself, because, like you said, you're gonna injure yourself, and then you won't be able to train for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Just allow for flexibility. I'm the type of person where I think we overuse OCD, but I am very much, I'm a performer. You know, if you set me a goal, I'm going to want to do, like, if you say X, I will do X. And so I briefly worked with a coach, and I kept getting injured because he would tell me to do this. And I'm like, yes, sir, I will. And then I would hurt myself because it's a matter of listening and trusting and knowing. And that comes with some experience, you know, trial and error. You definitely learn as you go. But if you're not in love with it and you find dread, then all of that negative feeds into it, and it's not going to be a good plan anyways. So pick a plan that's like feels doable, feels manageable. Again, there's so many free ones online. Bless the internet. Everything is available.
Right.
And there's so many different viewpoints. And so there's no one, same thing with shoes. There's no one size fits all. There's no one brand style that fits everybody, that suits everybody. Pick something that feels good for you. I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
I love it. I love that. And that's so cool. Like, have that plan, move forward with it. My problem is, I think my problem is I don't do the second part. I don't listen to my body enough.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I'm too focused on, no, I have to finish this. And then I, hurt my ankle, or I hurt this and I hurt this. And then I'm laid up for 2 weeks, and I need to start having a little bit more of a balance that way. So one of my friends, Frank, he has a couple questions here that I just want to jump into on a little bit of a tangent. I think this is really cool. So he says, looking back with your current experience, what advice would you give yourself before your first race, if you could? That's pretty awesome, actually.
That is a good one. I feel like I went into my first race, train more. I went in very undertrained.
And this kind of pairs with it. His second question, which pairs with the first one. So the first one is, what kind of advice would you give to yourself before your first race? And the second question is, what's the biggest thing that you've learned from your marathon experience? So, and that probably just pairs exactly with, whatever you've learned from it, you probably give your advice to your former self. But yeah, that's
I think with the marathon, and I think that what makes it so interesting is it's daunting. Starting at that starting line and being like, cool, 26 miles, we're going to do this.
Oh my God, I know.
Daunting. But certain things in life feel really daunting. And so the biggest thing, and I had to mentally work with it on my run this morning, is chunk it. I always say, like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, that sounds impossible. It's the same thing. Well, one bite at a time, you make progress. Eventually it becomes doable. And so it's the same thing with the marathon. The cliche is run the mile you're in, chunk it, have little goals. And I think that's applicable to so many things. And, even though I do it, and even though I exercise it, that by no means makes me an expert at it. And I still have to remind myself of it. And so, I just think chunk things, enjoy it, focus on the mile you're in, focus on the day you're in. That ties into, me being a run streaker, and doing that is, it feels daunting when you look at the overall picture, but you can only control the day you're in. So control the day you're in, focus on where you're at, focus on, that mile, that hour, that day. And it's going to hurt, but I can't tell you how many runs I've been on to where I feel like crap the first 5 miles, and then everything kind of starts to loosen up.
Yeah. So, right.
It's your body handles pain, I think, cyclically. And so with the marathon, you're going to have stages of being very uncomfortable. And so it's just a matter of like, okay, same thing, reassess. All right, this is uncomfortable. Maybe let off the pace a little bit, take a couple deep breaths, start to feel better, regroup, keep going. And again, I think that's why I like marathons so much, is I think there's so many parallels to just difficulties in life altogether. And the marathon is just kind of this interesting little chasm that we can kind of like pinpoint it in.
Awesome. I love it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel like a lot of the it's when we did our first couple marathons, it started off very just let's have some fun with it. Let's see what happens with it. But once, like you said, like once we got a little bit further in, and we kind of there was times when it settled, and we're like, okay, like this is the direction, and it felt better sometimes than we did in the first 3 or 4 miles.
100%.
And so along the same lines of training, I wanted to ask you a little bit about some different gear,
Yes.
and just specific. I know that they're just your recommendations, and that's fine. There's so much out there. I know personally, I've done. I swear by Asics because I love their shoes. And that's just me. I know that there's so many out there. I've tried some, I think Pumas and Adidas, and just it wasn't like Cinderella. Like it didn't fit me. But there's so much out there to choose from as far as we're talking shoes, we're talking watches, we're talking what you're wearing, we're talking so before we get into everything, let me ask you first about shoes. Like do you have a specific brand that's your go-to?
So this is going to sound like a commercial because you and I agree on a lot. I'm an Asics girl. I have been in the Gel Kayano religiously. It's my longest relationship for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it and it's funny that you say it because I had never thought of it that way, but it 100% rings true for me. As it was Cinderella, it was my glass slipper. I put on my first pair of Kayanos. I went to a running store in Redlands and got fitted when I was in college, like when I was in grad school. And I put on the Kayano and I was like, oh, bless this my shoe. And I have gone to a couple here. There's Runology, Fleet Feet here, great running stores, absolutely love them. And it's not, I can't get out of that shoe. I have a lighter. There's a little I like the New Balance Zante for like if I'm going to do a mile race or something because it's significantly lighter. But and it's stupid because my Kayanos were 12 ounces when I PR'd. So
but these ones are 11 ounces.
And it's 12 ounces too. It's stupid. I'm like, I could have taken a minute off if I was in lighter shoes, but they're not going to feel good. Or maybe I get injured. So, So I'm a big believer. That's a big piece of advice I give to anybody who's starting running is don't listen to what I wear. Don't listen to what the pros wear. Go to a running store. I don't care what store it is and go get fitted. Your shoes should feel like heaven on your feet. If they don't, that is not the right shoe for you.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you was because I went to a store in Pasadena called Run With Us.
Yeah, and I actually ran for them before.
Yeah, I love everybody who works there. They're great. And I went there one time and they literally watch you walk. They say, take your shoes and socks off and literally just walk towards me because different shoes are better for different people. And some people have collapsed arches, which you need a certain shoe to put your legs in.
Well, and everybody's feet are different. And everybody's stride is different and everybody's mechanics are different. And so for me, everything is connected. I have an amazing PT and if I'll be like, ooh, this hurts. And she's like, it's all the way over here. That's the issue. And so everything, especially with running, it's all so connected. And I always say, if you do nothing else, invest in the right pair of shoes for you.
Yes.
So go get fitted. You can go buy everything else from Target, Walmart, wherever you want to buy it from. Like nothing else matters as long as your feet and your shoes are good.
And how long would you recommend keeping the shoes for? I know some people say so many miles or so many months. Is it like an oil change?
Yeah, right. So they do break down because the second my shoes are over, I start to get shin splints and my shins start to hurt every time. And I'm like, ooh, I got to put these shoes out. But it just depends on the shoe and the wear. I've been in the Kayanos for so long. Asics, sponsor me, please. I spend way more money on shoes than I should.
Please, A6, sponsor both of us. I
Right?
promise to get back into running, and I don't know if I could meet up with Rhea's time, but I will definitely. I think me and you, we should do a race together, and we'll take some pictures, and we'll tag A6 and everything, and we'll have some fun.
Love it. But I've had a pair of Kayana. Again, I've been in the same, when you've been in the same model, and not every model is the same, you know, different editions. Like I started, I think I want to say I started in the 15s or the 17s. I can't remember. And then I had ones where I was like, ooh, I do not like the 20s. Oh, but the 21s feel good. But the 22s are okay. Ooh, the 23s
are they really that
like,
different? Like
they are. When you run in them,
really?
you run in the same model for so long, I pick up and so there's certain ones where I'm like, oh, I do not like these. And then I'm like, oh, totally never ran in the 24s, but the 26s are good, you know? So it's just,
wow.
Yeah. And so I think I'm in the 26s now.
Yeah, you're going to a whole other level right now.
But it was so funny but when you run in the same thing for so long, you know, again, it's the same thing. It's that like 10,000 hour. It's like, you know, with the guitar, you feel, you know, hey, this is slightly off. It's not right. So the shoes are the same. When I run every day, the shoes I feel, and I have had Kayanas go 800 plus miles, 800. And I was like, these still feel good. And then I've had
800 miles.
Yeah. I've had ones where like 400 in. I'm like, oh yeah, these feel janky now. I need to get rid of these. So, it just depends if they don't feel good anymore or like if you've had the same pair for a year, they dry out. Literally they start to deteriorate. So that's something you consider too. But if anything kind of starts to hurt, I'm a big believer in try a fresh pair of shoes. It could be the same model, same brand, same whatever.
But a fresh pair, yeah.
But yeah, because if you've had them sitting on the shelf for 2 years, you're probably not going to run 40 miles a week in those. That's good, you know. It's just the shoes are the big thing. I can't preach enough to have a good quality, like fresh pair of shoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Couple more things as far as gear.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at 3 more things. So I want to look at watches.
Yeah.
I want to look at like watches and apps, you know, that you would use. Hydration and fuel, which we could probably talk on in nutrition as well. But also a big thing for me was compression socks. I know that a lot of people talk big on compression socks, compression pants, like, or you know, they're not pants. They're like, I don't want to use the term leotard, but you know what I'm talking about. And then also compression, the shin ones, the ones that come all the way up to your knees. Yeah.
So, big believer. So what's funny is they always say when you start running, you just need shoes, and that's it. It's the cheapest sport ever. No, I'm sorry. Because once you stick with it, it becomes very expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the things you're like, oh, but I need this, the fuel, I need the watch, I need the and all of that I have in spades. I'm wearing my running watch now. I wear it all the time, literally sleep in it. So it's the Garmin. Hang on, I should be better at this. I'm not. Yeah. So so this is the 645 Garmin. Again, Garmin sponsor me. Just kidding. I paid for it already. But it's not an expensive watch. And so this is my third Garmin. It's a very light. I like it. Ladies rose gold. It's nice for the office, which was one of the reasons I picked it. It holds 500 songs, which is cool. So like, I don't need to take my phone with me if I don't want to. The whole face is customizable. It does different activities and stuff, but it's not an expensive watch. I bought it on Amazon, and like my running stores will sell it for the same price, especially around like Thanksgiving, Black Friday sales. It was like $250 ish, which I get 250, but you know, if you
is that like an average price for a lot of the?
You can get a good Garmin or a good. I'm a big fan of Garmin. It's my third one. I haven't had an issue with any of them, but for like $200, you can get a really good Garmin. Like you don't need the music. You don't need it's a great watch. I know a lot of people, especially those who are interested in running longer, have been getting into like Koros, or there's some more, some different watches for ultra runners that are definitely better options. I can't speak on that because I'm not an ultra runner. I've done two, but I don't.
Now but the watch that you're looking at, is that more of a
This is
like
great for every
what does it track?
day.
Like what are the best things about it, the best features?
So, so it connects to my smartphone, so I still get text messages. So there's a lot of perks that like Apple Watch that you get. So like I can set notifications. It's customizable, so it's like really nice because I can change the face of it so it looks nice. It's really light, and then it connects Bluetooth, so it automatically uploads my runs to Strava, which is really nice. So I don't have to connect anything. I think in terms of any good like Garmin, I think you really can't go wrong. There's a reason they're kind of like the most obvious choice for running, because they have a lot of different options, especially if you don't want to spend too much. You can get a good Garmin for 100 and some odd bucks. But it's just a nice, convenient, easy. You don't need all the bells and whistles, but like this, I can swim with this. I can like sup with it. I do a lot.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think
nice.
now they come with like a charger and stuff like that and all that.
Yep. Yeah. And for as much, and it lasts, I charge it maybe once a week, twice a week. Yeah. And I wear it every day, all day, and I run every day, and it's still like, it holds a charge for a substantial, and I've had it 2.5 years now. Love it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my friend Boris is chiming in, and Boris he's a rock and roll homie right here. And he says, what about shoes to be on stage? What are the favorite shoes to perform live with, brother? And I just got to chime in on that. And I love my Asics for running, but when I'm on stage, it's either Doc Marten boots or it's Chucks, like some good like custom Chucks. So I just want to make sure that I acknowledge you, my friend. I love you, buddy, and thanks for the support, man. I appreciate you being here. But
He's like, that is a you question. I have no.
Yeah, that was definitely a me question right there. Sweet. Okay, so I love this. I love that we're learning more about like the gear, the training, the last thing that I think I wanted to touch a little bit more on with the gear. I know we were talking about watches and apps and that stuff. But I'm curious about your take on like compression socks. We said a little bit about it earlier, but do you run with them on, or do you use them afterwards as a recovery type?
So I have to preface this by saying that I hate things on my legs while I'm running. So and I am notorious. Everybody who knows me running here, like they are just like, if it's cold, Rhea's still wearing shorts. And like it's so bad. The Amazon delivery guy is like, where's your pants? And I'm like, it's 30 degrees. I'm fine. I'm really shrill there because I'm passionate about that.
Yeah.
No, my rule of thumb is if it's 30 or over, I'm in shorts. Because I hate things on my legs when I'm running, especially the back of my knees. It like it's just I don't know what it is for me. I hate it. I want my legs to be free. I will be bundled up, buff, gloves, shirt, like, but leave my legs free. And it's funny because when I first started running, I was the opposite. I'd wear like capris and then a tank top, and now I'm like, no, shorts. Like, but not everybody is that comfortable. I understand shorts aren't like, especially for women runners. A lot of us like capris. I was a capri runner for a long time. I understand it. But compression socks. So I loathe running in them. If I have a calf that feels a little janky, I will on occasion, but it's probably been years since I've run in a compression sock or sleeve. But I probably sleep in I have calf sleeves that just go from ankle to knee. Those are my absolute favorite because I don't really need compression on my foot. I really kind of want, especially after a run, I want my toes to kind of breathe out. Compression on it, like it can be helpful, but I like my feet to feel free, especially in the summertime. It's hot. I don't want to wear socks to bed when it's hot, but I probably sleep in my compression sleeves 5 nights out of 7 of the week.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
But I run every day. And so
No, well, that's very
it's
interesting to know that because, like you
yeah.
said, you train a lot and you log motherfucking miles. Like you're logging all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I was really curious about the compression socks because
I'm a believer. I do think they help, especially a lot of runners suffer from tight calves. It's a very common issue. And so the easiest way for me with being so busy is I just sleep in them and then I don't think about it. It's a good amount of time. If you're not used to them, that might be too long to wear a compression sock or compression sleeve, but I'm used to them. They're a little stretched
well,
out.
maybe for a
Not
couple
tight.
hours after the run or something like that.
Couple hours is great. I do know people who run in them, who race in them, and that's their ball game. But for me, I very much like them for recovery. I do think they help. I also use them when I fly. If I've got like a long haul flight somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I do it. I'm like 30 years old. I'm 35 now. I've been doing it for 20 years. Where I just go to, like, oh, I'm going to sleep on this 12-hour flight. Let me put my compression on. Yeah, I do think they help. And they don't have to be super tight. They don't have to be uncomfortable. But I notice if I've gone a couple nights where I don't wear them, I notice like, ooh, my calves are feeling tight. And so I'll put them on. Pro Compression is a brand that I probably use the most, but there's many, many great ones out there. I've gotten some good ones for very inexpensively on Amazon or, my local running stores. But yeah.
Okay.
I think they're great.
Awesome.
Again, if you don't like it on your feet, if you're not used to that, get the sleeves. The sleeves are,
I think that's what I have. I have just the sleeves that goes from the ankle to the knee.
Ankle to knee, clutch.
I use now. I use that. I say I use them every now and then, which is I use that term loosely because last time I ran it's been a minute. But so Boris chimes in. I love what he says here. He says, much respect to everybody working out, who's into working out. It's all about the mental strength is definitely healing from within. I need to do this more often. I love that you are, watching this podcast, and anybody who's watching this and getting inspired, that's exactly the intent behind this podcast, is to learn something new, drink a beer, which I just filled up again from one of these St. Archers, which is great. But
Speak of that, I gotta
time to get another beer. So and then my good friend Mr. David Schlitt, he had to take off. But I appreciate you being here so much, my friend. And I'm especially for this specific podcast because I know that we're talking about running. And that was probably what, you're my drama teacher from when I was 10 years old, but you were such a big inspiration for me getting into running and running. I think I did a 2K and then a 5K and then a few 10Ks and stuff. And so appreciate you being here and spending your time with me here. So let me jump back into this. So the next segment that I wanted to jump into, I'm sorry. I'm still learning how to navigate the platform here. Let me, okay. So I wanted to jump in. My dad had a question earlier and we're going to jump into that right now. Dad, I hope you're still watching, but we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition.
I begin nutrition.
Is that food?
So hungry.
Look at your diet. It's obvious. You're not too interested in counting calories.
14,000 calories later.
I got a B on my nutrition final.
To hell with nutrition. Let's talk about food.
So we're talking about nutrition and food right now, and this was a big thing that I wanted to chime in on, mostly because everybody kind of has that there's that stigma, there's that everybody thinks that as soon as you're going to run a marathon, well, you got to eat 17 pizzas the night before, or a big giant thing of pasta or something like that. So my first question to you is, what would you recommend as a good, day before meal before you're going to go out and run a marathon?
So I'm religious on this. It's like almost a superstition, which is very funny. For every marathon I've ever done, I do pasta the night before with a tomato sauce, not meat sauce, which is hard for me, but I don't want to have too much protein. Your body needs to focus. So the carbs are great. And then sometimes veggies, but definitely bread. So pasta and bread. I have had wine before, or a beer. And I've still done well, you know.
Hold on. Stop the press. Time out. Let's take a 20 real quick. You said that before you drink wine?
Yeah, well, like the night before, I'll have like a little.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like right before you jump in there. I was like, that's my kind of marathon. Like,
no, don't do that. No.
But definitely, so you are leaning more towards the towards the carbohydrates.
Yep.
The pastas,
but actually, like, to be honest, carb load like the week of, like, not too crazy, but especially like 2-3 days out. I say like 3 days out, start really focusing on getting, like, 1 day of carb loading isn't going to really help you. Like, build up those carbs those last few days before the race, and then eat a lighter carb meal the night before, because you don't want to feel all like, especially because it's an early morning race. You don't want to have too much in your gut. And so it's important but you want to be carbo loaded. So I preface this when you and I were preparing for tonight. The one time I did not eat pasta the night before a marathon, I ended up in the med tent. So
what?
Yes. And so that is why
what happened? Now you got to tell us about that shit.
Yes. So I did. Did you and Marlene ever do Mountains to Beach in Ventura?
No, we never did that one. No, so, we did the San Diego one. We did the LA. We did the, what else did we do? Marlene did the San Francisco, the Nike's women's.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she did that by herself. Like, I wasn't able to go with her. So no, like, cheering, cheerleader. She was there by herself. Like, that was mental right there. She knocked that out of the park. It was pretty incredible. And then I did the Huntington Beach, but we haven't done that one.
Okay. So yes, it was Mountains to Beach 2015. I went, we had met up with a couple friends and we let them pick the dinner, and it got late, and Ventura doesn't have a lot of food options like LA does. And so, unfortunately, everything was booked or closing, and it was just kind of like, well, we don't eat or we eat here, and all they have was a hamburger.
Oh.
So I had a hamburger and fries, and I was like, let me eat these fries. Like, the burger should be okay.
Oh, you were just, you were stuck between a rock and a hard place right there.
I had done about 20 marathons at that point. So I was not a novice. My body knew the distance.
Yeah.
And I ended up by mile 16. I was like, ooh, this is not going to be a good day for me. By mile 23, I had my one friend Casey had seen me, and she was like, I saw you at 23. I don't know how you made it to the finish. And I was like, I literally weeble wobbled. That's what I call it. I weeble wobbled the last 3 miles. And I remember just like, not even every quarter, just every 10th of a mile looking at my watch. Am I there yet? And for for somebody who's done a lot of marathons, to be hurting so badly that like every 10th I'm checking to see if I'm almost there, mentally is terrible. And then just like, no, I could have like barely pick up my feet, and I crossed the first timing mat, and I knew I was like, I'm done. And so I just said like, and like I finished 4th, and like, so I was like still like doing well, but I had like lost.
What the shit? You're like, oh, yeah, I was so struggling, but I finished 4th.
No, but I was in the lead. I was tied for 1st before like the winner.
Oh, wow.
So it was and like we had a good lead, and I lost like 10 minutes the last like 3 miles. So
that sucks.
That's a good chunk of time to lose.
And so do you attribute the majority of that to the diet from before?
Well, and I had raced too much leading up to it. I had done too much going in. And so I was already in like the well of reserves where I should have been a little more cautious. And then it was a hot day, and I didn't carbo load, and I was not properly, like, it was just just the perfect storm of chaos. And so I crossed the first timing mat, and I was like, I need help. And they're like, you have one more timing mat. And I was like, I can't take another step. I finished. I need help. And I
Yeah.
immediately started to go down, and these two like medics just came and like picked, and they like firemen carried me, and I'm in my little short running shorts, and they're just like, and I'm
So
like,
you got
I'm
like
not,
booty sticking out, like
I'm
just.
not giving birth. We don't need to carry me like that, but I don't even care. Like, and they carried me to the med tent, and like my mom was an RN, and so I just turned to like the person like taking care of me, and I was like, I have no known allergies, and I was out.
Oh my
2
God.
hours. Yep, out. And very lucky they didn't make me go to the hospital, because that would have been a bill I did not want.
Yeah.
But yeah, full body convulsions. I was throwing up. Like
Oh
they
my
gave me,
gosh.
yeah, they like packed my whole body with ice, and I just went full like shock, and just like everything tensed up and seized. And then they tried to give me like Pedialyte to get the salt in to kind of help me loosen up, and then I threw that up, and I was like, and then I couldn't talk. Weirdest thing. I could not.
What was it? What year was this?
2015.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just terrible.
You're a crazy woman.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in carb loading before a race.
No more hamburgers, y'all.
No hamburgers. Just get the pasta. I promise it'll be better.
Yeah. Well, here's another one of the last questions that I had as far as nutrition goes, and we can talk a little. Oh, actually, one more question I had. As far as nutrition, during the race, how often do you hydrate? Like, because we're talking about as you're running, they always have the water stations, and you can drink water. But I remember the first couple marathons that we went on, and they were like, there was volunteers out there giving you like goop and giving you these blocks and giving you all these things. And I remember the first marathon we went on, trust me, I'm the dude. If you offer me something to eat, I'm fucking eating it. So like they offered me all this stuff and I ate everything. And by the time I got to mile 22, I'm like, what the hell? Like I felt like I had Thanksgiving dinner as I was running a fucking marathon. So like, what do you recommend as far as when it comes to hydration, water consumption, goop and blocks? If people know what that is, I know they're like carbohydrates and stuff like that you can take as you're going, but what's your recommendations when it comes to stuff like that?
So, and I think that's just the thing that like, with experience, you gain a little more knowledge on what works for you. Again, not everything works for everybody. Everybody kind of has taste preferences. But my rule of thumb is if you haven't had it in training, do not take it during a race. So if you didn't train with shot blocks and they're handing them out at mile 17, do not take them. Unless you're dying and you feel like you need nutrition and you want to chance it because you have an iron stomach, don't. But yeah, my big rule of thumb is if you haven't trained with it, don't take it. So whatever you want, like plan your race strategy ahead of time. So like there's little fuel belts. I stuff shit in my sports bra and take that as I go. And then by the time I finish, I'm free. And so, so that is, it's all about trial and error. Some people like goos. When I first started running, goo was like the only thing out there. And so that's what I trained with. You'll be very hard pressed to have me have a goo now. I did have one like 2 months ago on a run with a friend because I was like starving and he was like, I have a goo. And I was like, yeah, all right, give me that. I'm fine. And it was like, it was a 13-mile run. And I was like, well, and it did help. But again, that is so much. But most things on the race course, I do not take because they will make me so sick. I have a very weak stomach and they will make me very nauseous. They hand out Gatorade a lot during marathons, which I think is way too sugary for most of us when we're trying to run.
Okay.
That will make me very like just completely, again, I have a weak stomach. And so I have learned what works for me. But don't wait until you're thirsty to drink, especially in a marathon. If you wait until you're thirsty, you're already in a hole. Don't wait until you're already low to fuel. Don't overfuel. Again, so practice while you're training. I think that's a really good rule of thumb is figuring out how often you need fuel. And so on your long runs, when you're prepping for it, if you have long but practice. So if you're, if you're going to go, okay, this is my 15 mile today. Okay, practice what you want to do. So go and get some fuel. And if on your training run, hey, that did not sit well with me. Okay, then don't use that race day. I like the little sports beans. I have found the little Jelly Bellies. I did those for years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the little Jelly Belly sports beans. I think those are great because they're really palatable and small. And so you can have one or two. I do that.
Or 10 or 12, like how I eat them.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. The other thing I really like, which is not a running thing, but I use them all the time, is Target has the Good and Gather. They're just little, like literally, I will grab the box for you right now.
Nice. I love this.
Again, I am not sponsored.
Good and Gather from Target.
It's the Target brand. So it's the Target brand, and they're literally just these little tiny little fruit strips.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so look at how these fit in a running pocket. So
easily. Yeah.
So I'll put 2 of these, and I will have like 2 of them during a race, like 1 or 2, just depending on how long the race is. And they're just, it has it's like 50 calories. And they're just not super sweet. They're really easy to eat while you're running. And so, and again, I have gotten a lot of people turned on to these just because it's just so easy. I'll eat them before a run. They're post-run snack. Yeah, it's just kind of, and it's not a running thing. It's literally, they're just from Target. But I really love those. That's what I had on my run today. The other thing is Gatorade, people there's a lot of really, different nutrition options. Again, find a flavor that works best for you. Not everybody has the same taste or palate. I used Noon religiously for several years. And then I realized I don't like it's slightly carbonated. And then I realized I don't like this. And for some reason, my taste totally changed this last year. And so now my friend recommended Scratch. And so I actually use Scratch now. Because it's not sugary, it's not sweet, it's not carbonated. So it's literally like how people make fun of LaCroix, how it's like, if you put a fruit over here, that's what LaCroix tastes like. And I'm like, but I like it because I don't want it to be, because I have a very weak stomach. And so, so again, it's just
have you ever,
things.
You were saying that you have a very weak stomach.
Yeah.
Have you ever run like races, marathons, half marathons, whatever? Have you ever run in on a completely empty stomach? And is that something that you've ever done? And how did you? I'm just curious.
So I have had races where I haven't, my stomach has been just not great in the morning, and so I didn't get a whole lot down before. And with experience, if you're a pretty active racer, you can probably get through that pretty well. But your body needs fuel. There is some training that is they call them depletion runs, where you don't eat anything before and then you go run 18 miles. For me, mentally, I don't want to feel like shit for 18 miles. So I know that if I'm going to run 18 miles and I want to run well, I need to eat. So,
well, if I'm running 18 miles, I know I'm going to feel like shit anyways.
But do you want to make it worse?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So I have a really amazing friend, my friend Vanessa, and she had done them in the past. I don't know if she still does them or not, but yeah, I'm just not a big fan of that. I am a big believer, especially with distance runners. Some of them can get very into calorie counting. I'm a big believer in fueling your body. And so I will force myself to eat, even though I don't want to with my weak stomach. And yeah, I have thrown up during races, but
the best of us have.
Yeah, but it's important. Your body needs fuel to keep going. And and the amount of times I've thrown up versus not thrown up after forcing myself to kind of just choke down some fuel, is, I can think of off the top of my head twice I've thrown up during a race, and I've done well over 200 races. Jeez. So if you think of that percentage, it's definitely worth fueling. And again, like cars can't run on empty, people can't run on empty, so
Yeah,
fuel, like
true, true.
so I'm a big believer in taking care of your body, and your body is a tool, and treating that tool well, and that maintenance to it. Yeah,
That's awesome. I love it.
yeah.
And so my dad chimes in, and I love this. And
Okay.
my dad up in Utah, he says, most important question. What are your dogs' names? Picture on the wall behind you. I love it because you're such an animal lover. We are too, me and Marlene, and we love our animals, and I know that you love your animals too. So
Yeah. So those, sadly, I lost both of those pups this last year.
yeah,
Those are my rescue boys, Jack and Benson. So, Jack and then Benson. And
okay,
yeah, Benny just died in April, and Jack passed away last March. But yeah, they're just the best little pups ever.
yeah, that's awesome. I love
So
it. I love it. I love that you have them up on the wall. I'll be
yeah,
honest. I think that's something that we need to do. We need to take your follow your lead on that. And we have some great photos of our pups. And to be honest, we got to put them up on the wall because they're our family. So
yeah, I know. So my little guy, that I adopted after Jack passed away last year, I adopted another one, which
yeah,
passed away last week,
yeah,
sadly.
yeah.
And I was like, I have to put Marty up. So now I'm like,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't want to go into that. I know it's.
yeah. So it's like, oh, I need to put Marty up because I have to do him justice. That's my little bracelet I'm actually playing with. It's a little dog paw that a girlfriend sent me after Benny passed away. And so, yeah, they're just, dogs are just wonderful. They give us so much more than we ever give them. And so it's just a matter of, I will do anything and everything. And so, yeah, those are my guys.
I love it. Love it. All right. So jumping in back into, let me bring this up. I think we know where we're going with this, but some people don't.
Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium.
So we're going streaking, and most people think that we're going streaking in a different way. Me and you, we already know it's a different. It's a different type of streaking. Okay. So I wanted to let everybody know that Rhea's been doing a streak run, which doesn't mean that she runs naked through the quad, but it means it's a streak that she's been going, I think, every day for 17 miles every day. You can explain that, but it's every day consecutively. If you could explain a little bit about this streak run, how it works, what are the rules, and how long have you been doing it?
So this is another one I get very bashful on. Because it just sounds so ridiculous and it's the same thing. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you streak? One day at a time. And I did not intend to be where I am now. So streaking and there's a Streak Runners Association, and it is at least one continuous mile. So you have to run at least 1 mile. So not 400s, not a half mile in the morning, half mile in the evening. It's 1 mile at least, in a calendar day. And so I have been doing that. So at least 1 mile, 1.1 is my minimum. Since December, so it's my last day where I didn't do it was December 18th of 2013.
What the shit?
It sounds so stupid when you try to explain
No,
it
it sounds fucking impressive.
Because you're like, since December, and they're like, oh, cool. And then depending on what month if it's January, they're like, all right. And then if it's August, they're like, oh, cool. And then you're like 2013.
2013.
Wait. Go back. Hang on. It's like the record stop, sound.
Okay, so back up. You said that there is an association.
Yeah.
So is it like a run club?
It's just like a nonprofit little thing that people started it. I had a friend who, when I was trying to qualify for Boston, I had like my little goal was 12 days. I just wanted to do it for 12 days. I work in education, so I had the week off between Christmas and New Year's, so I had 12 days off from work, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to qualify for Boston. I was always the excuse runner. It's too hot. It's too cold. I just ate. My favorite.
I didn't eat enough. Whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I need to do laundry. I always had every excuse, which is why I always joke that I am a terrible marathoner, which is like literally I hate water. I had every excuse. Like I am not a good runner. And so it was like, okay, Rhea, you need to stop the excuses. Like, how do you not? And so it was like, well, I'm going to do it every day for 12 days. So there's no excuses. I have to go out and run today. I'm trying to qualify for Boston. And so I was like, okay, 12 days off of work. Well, then I started a day early. And so I was like, okay, 14 days. But it was 12 days was my goal. So that's how it started. And then all of a sudden, my marathon was coming up, and it was about a month. And I ended up running for 12 days in a row. And then it was like, well, I started a day early, so I should really make it 14. And then I just kept going. And then I was like, okay, my marathon's in a week and a half. After that, I'll stop. And then after the marathon, I was like, but I'm almost at a month. Like, maybe I should just keep going. And then can I run after a marathon? That's kind of a fun challenge. And I qualified for Boston. So it was like, well, let me try to run tomorrow and see if if it hurts,
I'm sorry. Qualifying for Boston.
Yeah.
Did you have to run a marathon to qualify for the marathon?
Yeah. So you
which one was it?
I qualified at Carlsbad in San Diego.
Jeez.
That's a special race. I love it. As much as I love LA, I also love Carlsbad. So I'll talk that one up as well.
Hell
it's
yeah.
a great race. It's like $100 for the marathon, and you get like a jacket and a shirt, and like it's swag.
Yeah.
There's no beer after, but it is swag.
Well, there will be for us because we'll go find it.
It's a special race. I love the Carlsbad Marathon. January, the weather's always like perfect. Big marine layer in the morning in January in San Diego, and then the afternoon is like 70 and sunny. It's just perfect.
Hell yeah. So you qualify for it.
Yeah.
And then the day after, you're like, I got to keep this going.
No, I was like, can I run? I should try. And so I went to like my work had a track because I worked at college, and it was a mile away. And I was like, let me just go try to run a mile around the track. And if I can't, I'll stop. And then I could. And so I did. And so I kept going. And I had met somebody who had been doing it for 2 years at the race. And he was like, go for a year. And I was like, oh no, like that's ridiculous. 12 days. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And like, I was like 30-ish at that point. And he was just like, just go for a year. And I was like, maybe I'll try for 100, but like, that's pushing it. And so I was like, let me see if I can run tomorrow, and then we'll talk. And so then I tried the next day. I ran the next day, and then kept going. And then I was like aiming for 100. And then I saw him at San Diego Rock and Roll like a couple months later, and I was at like 112 or something, like, just over.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, you're still going. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, go for a year. And I was like, maybe. At that point, I was like, okay, now that feels less of a big deal than like, being a month in versus like 3 months in. And try to go for a year. And so, or, I think I was about 4 or 5 months in at that point. I'm still friends with him, which is funny. I actually introduced him to his wife that weekend, and
no way.
Yeah, they've been happily married ever since. And so it's just funny. And he's still doing it. He's 2 years ahead of me. And it's lovely. God. So he's still streaking. I'm still streaking. I have like just over 3 months until year 8, which is just the dumbest thing on the planet.
So you're up to what, like 2,900?
2813 was today.
2813.
Yeah, so 2,813 days, which is just, again, it's stupid. It sounds so dumb. But it is.
No, I mean, it doesn't sound dumb to me because Marlene.
It's
so
ridiculous.
my wife,
it's
My
so
wife was a big, you were definitely a huge inspiration on her when it came to running as well. I mean, not only just running marathons and mindset and that type of thing, but with the streaking thing, because Marlene took it up and she
yeah,
didn't expect to go that far.
same.
And she started
Yeah.
doing it and she ended up going for, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 1,000 days. It was
Yeah.
like 1,001 or 1,003, something like that. And she killed it. Like, and I remember towards the end of her streak, it was, I can't remember exactly what was going on in her lives, but I just remember that it was becoming a little bit more of a burden and it wasn't as enjoyable as
Yep.
yeah. And that's where she listened to her body and she was like, you know what? I'm at 1,000 or I'm at 1,000 and whatever. I think this is a really good end cap right here. But I mean, wow, the dedication that she had during that. And I
Yeah.
know that that was definitely influenced by your dedication, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't you like run a mile at a bar because you almost forgot that day or something like that?
So it wasn't that I forgot, but I just didn't plan my day well. And it's funny because I'm actually in a very similar outfit to what I ran that in. So I had been in North Carolina for like less than 6 months, and my friend, who was like the one person I had been friends with before I moved here, she had these tickets to go to the Duke Lemur Center because it's like, cool, let's go see some lemurs. And it was supposed to be like an afternoon thing. And so I was like, cool, I'll drive to your house. We'll drive together because it's by car. So like we all want to ride together. And so we drove to Durham and we went to the Duke Lemur Center and we saw lemurs. And it was like, so, it's like Madagascar, like a little lemur movie. And then everyone was like, we had a couple other friends, like car groups that had met up with us. And I was still new. And so I was like excited to meet new people. And so then they're like, well, let's go to like this brewery. So we went to this brewery and then we're having beers and I'm like, okay. And I'm doing and I'm looking at like the time and it was like 9. And I'm like, okay, so if I like Uber back to my car at her house and then I Uber back home, I can do it, but it's going to be like 11 by the time like all that finagles out. And so like, I just kind of like turned, and they're all runners. And so I just kind of was just like, I didn't do my mile yet today. And she's like, uh-oh. And I was like, I kind of want to
because she knew what was up.
Yeah, so she knew because we've been friends for years. And so she was just my friend Michelle, love her. And she's just the best person. And she was just like, oh, and I was like, will you go stand? Like, I think I'm going to do a mile in my jean shorts and my strapless bra and like tank top and flip flops. I was going to do it in my flip flops, literally the ones I'm wearing. And
like straight out of Kenya. Like you're just going to go barefoot.
It's a mile. Like it's not going to be the most comfortable. It's not going to be like the fastest, but I can go do it. I can
get
run
it done.
I can run. When you run that long, you can run it a lot. And I had already been I was already 2.5 years into it at that point. So I was like, okay. And so my friend Shannon, who was her, she was just like, well, what size shoe are you? And I was like, oh, like I run in an 8. And she's like, I got a pair of 7.5s. And I was like, okay, so that's what I wear normally. I could do that.
Let's do this.
Our other friend, and this was before I wore my watch all the time. Because again, the longer you run, the more religious you get with it.
Okay.
And
all right.
So I didn't wear my watch unless I was running. And so our other friend Jennifer was like, well, you can borrow my watch. And so so I borrowed her watch and then I borrowed a pair of shoes. I had no socks. I was in jean shorts and like a tank, like literally like a strapless bra and a tank top. And I'm in Durham, which if you know Durham, it's there's Raleigh, there's Durham, there's Chapel Hill. They all have their different kind of vibe to it. And so I'm literally running at this brewery in this very kind of industrial section of Durham.
Yeah.
That's like not the safest for a little like young thing to be running in at 10 o'clock at night.
In a strapless bra.
And it's summer. And so there was actually like a cop car on the street and he's just kind of looking at me and I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm not running out of fear. I'm running out of stupidity.
Yeah. I'm not running out of fear and I'm not running because I stole something.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm good. And so literally I was just like, so I just did like a tenth of a mile out, tenth of a mile back, tenth of a mile out, tenth of a mile. Like I just did little quarters out and back. Just at the brewery. I literally left my beer was on the table. Like Michelle, Shannon, Jennifer, and our other friend Carrie, like all stood outside with me, and they're cheering me on. And the cars were like, the hell is happening? It's 10 o'clock. Why is this white girl running in the neighborhood? Like, what is she doing? And
that's how you keep it going. That's how it's that dedication. It's that mindset.
Well, and it's like, you can always find 10 minutes. So if you could just find 10 minutes, even if you don't feel good, find 10 minutes, go out and do it and come. And like, my dog died last week. I literally, all I had was like the amount of energy I had. I was like, I didn't want to sacrifice 10 minutes with him. So I waited, said bye to him, came home, processed for like an hour. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go run a mile, 10 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and wallow in this. And I did. And like, I don't recommend that for everybody. The streak is not for everybody. For me, it's for some reason it works. I don't think it works.
No, I love that.
I have had, and like Marlene stopped hers on her own terms. My other friend Katie, she did it for 5 years and a day, and she was like, "I'm done now," and so she stopped. And it was like nothing was wrong. She was just like, "I just don't love it anymore." I have another girlfriend who was trying to start a family, and she was just like, this needs to not be a priority anymore. And I love that. Like it needs to be what you want it to be, and running should be what you want it to be. And that like goes back to my earlier comment, is if you're not in love with it, it's not going to work. So you want it. And like, it took 2 years before I loved running, but like,
and how cool is that like, we're talking, like, I love what you said about if you don't love it, but loving it can be for a period of time, and like your friend said, it was her time. Like my wife, she had her moments with it, and her moment was 1,001 days or something. I mean, that's an amazing feat.
That doesn't stop. That's still there. That's
100%. That's there the whole time. And I'm like, you ran 1 mile a day, like that dedication of going to work, coming home. Oh shit, it's 11 p.m. and I got to get my mile in, and I'm going to go do this. And I'm like, that her mindset and her dedication to, and her relentlessness to doing that was really motivating. And literally your streakingness was such a huge motivator for that. And I thank you for that. That's pretty amazing to see your reach, you know what I mean? Just from something that you do, and the reach that you take from that. So
it's special. And I'm very I'm very bashful on it, because it's not something for anybody. I don't do it to like brag about it. It's not something I talk about unless like people who know me know I do this. But it's just one of those things where it's just something I do. And I have had people tell me like, I didn't want to run today, but I knew you were going to go out and run, so I did. And so then there's like a greater purpose to it. So there's a little bit of like, okay, I know that people are counting on me to kind of like be this source of like, okay, like Rhea's going out there and doing it in this crappy 90-degree weather with 90% humidity. Like I can go do this too. And like, and it's so cute. My one friend today said the same thing, and she was like, I did 4 miles today because I knew you were going out there. And I was like, oh, I love that. Like, I'm so proud of you. But it's not for everybody. Like, different bodies allow different things. Some people need days off. And I like, as somebody who doesn't do it, like, I still do it. Like, if I feel like emotionally not there, or I feel physically not there, I luckily am able to go out and just like cruise through a very, 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 very easy mile. But I don't think everybody needs to do that if it's not something that excites you. If it doesn't excite you, don't do it.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody, and it's not for everybody's, situation. Some people might have 27 kids and they don't have the time to go do
They
that.
do
Or people like my good friend Boris who chimes in. He says, throughout the pandemic, I had a very consistent drinking beer, that is. And that's very true. I was with you on that, my friend. But I really hope that you got your run in today, because where you are, it's pretty close to midnight.
Yeah, so I ran this morning specifically to allow for this, so we're good.
I was about to freak out right now. I was like, you need to go for a run right now.
I know, because I have 7 minutes until mid, so that
Well,
has to
you
be
know
a
what?
very quick mile.
I know. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. But I know that we have gone way over what I expected this to be, and I appreciate your time hanging out with me, chatting, online. I know it's super late for you, and I know you want to go to bed, but it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to the people that are following the 5 Foot Viking podcast, that you're spending some time with us, drinking some beer, and allowing all of us to learn something new. So, and what are you're still drinking? You're still going?
Yeah, wait, I filled up again because we were going.
Well, I filled up like 7 times because I'm a professional. Like,
Hold on, I'm not good at the cameras. Yeah, I'm not the professional. I'm not the professional on the camera. This is my other one. This was actually not a local one. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, you know what? If it's East Coast, that's more local to you than it is local to us. That's for sure. And so with everything being said, I just want to thank Rhea. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I know you had a lot going on today, and you've had a lot going on this past week, and preparing for this and being able to sit down and spend your evening just chatting and giving us a piece of your mind. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to everybody else. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, everybody who's hanging out with us still, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys hanging out. And once again, you guys can always visit the 5footviking.com. Moving forward, I promise you guys, I have some merchandise that's coming. I'm working with a web designer right now to put something together. And thank you guys for your patience, and thank you guys for your support. And with that being said, you know what? I didn't upload it. My dumbass didn't upload the flyer for next week. But let me just tell you guys right now, next week, I'm super excited because I went to college out here well, I'm still in college, but I got my AA at Golden West Community College. And one of my favorite classes was called Interpersonal Communications. Did you ever take that class?
I did, actually, yeah.
Okay, that's a great class because it teaches you all about like body language and reading people and talking with people and perception checking and like all kinds of good stuff. And I think that's check this out. It's the only the only textbook that I kept was this class. Okay, so with that being said, I just want to let you guys know that I reached out to my professor from that class, who now we've become friends. Her name is Professor Katie Bruns, and she is going to be my guest next week on the 5 Foot Viking podcast. And we're literally going to be talking about interpersonal communication. We're going to be talking about how you can communicate with your spouse, your significant other, the people that are in your in your vicinity. I'm super excited for this because there's so many. We've all talked about. Have you ever had? Okay, Rhea, I'm going to ask you real quick, and this is a personal question. I'm going to throw this out to you. But have you ever had in a personal relationship where you say, "Hey, babe, what do you want to get for dinner?" I don't know, whatever you want. Well, how about this? No, I'm not down with that. Well, you just said that you were down for whatever. Oh, no, like, have you ever had that situation?
So yes, I think anybody who, yeah. So I have 2 comments on that. And,
okay. All right.
So I was raised by an amazing dad, and basically he taught me never to be that woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I still do it. But he said, if your man says that, he's like, tell them, give me 3 options. And then you pick the option you want out of the 3 options. So that is what he taught me. was,
Okay.
yeah, if like you're not in the mood for anything particular, have him give you 3 options, and then you pick the option that is the most appealing to you, and then you're both happy because it's not a back and forth.
Okay.
So
So that's
that's
actually
my
really
rule.
good. I should have him on the podcast too.
He's
Uh,
amazing.
so next week we talked about that specific subject in class, and I remember, and she was always such a good, one of my favorite professors because she was so relatable, and the class itself talked about so many great instances that are in our everyday life. So
Yeah.
the fact that we became friends, I'm super excited to talk about this next week as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are watching, first and foremost, thank you so much, Rhea, for giving us your knowledge and spending some time giving us tips. And uh, look forward to next week, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. specific time, or Pacific time, and and we're going to be talking about interpersonal communications next week.
Love
So looking forward to that. So Rhea,
Thank you.
you're amazing. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. With that being said, the 5 Foot Viking, we are out of here. And I think this is how you end it.